You're on time. Somebody.
Councilmember Eugene Costa Jr.
Here.
Pro Tem. Councilmember Christina Hernandez.
Present.
Councilmember Megan Lozelle.
Present.
Councilmember Gilbert Robles.
Present.
Mayor Jillian.
Here. We have a forum. You please stand with me and with the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is agenda review. Is there any council member that wishes to change the order of business as noted?
I wanted to pull E from the consent calendar for discussion in that section or? will it-
No, yeah, we'll wait, we'll get right to that.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. The agenda is written. Next item is ceremonial calendar swearing in of David Bonifacio, fire engineer. Chief Cash. Family members, please, you're welcome to come up if you want to take pictures.
You guys did do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, staff and public. We have David Bonifacio here, and he's going to give the oath of office. The execution of this oath is required by Article 20, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of California. So repeat after me and raise your right hand. I, in your name, do solemnly swear, or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of California, and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Upon which I am about to enter. I was just as nervous as you were. Congratulations.
Thank you. Chief Dash or David, you want to say anything? For your family?
Nervous.
You don't have to, but you're.
I want to say thank you, and I'm gonna do my best and, make you guys proud.
Thank you.
I want to say, for everyone to understand where Dave came from. Dave has been one of our paid call firefighters for 15 years. So he's been in the waiting portal for 15 years, been serving the city of Guadalupe in a part-time capacity and has an outside job. I gotta give kudos to his family that's been waiting all these times that he's been coming, waiting for his opportunity. And he's been doing all the training, everything necessary all these years to be ready. So when this opportunity came, he was ready for it, slid right into the position, and he's been doing it. So, it's kudos to him and his desire to be here, and he's been a big part of our, Santa Claus, tradition with the fire department. He has been Santa Claus this year, but he has helped. Yeah, I'm sorry, kids. But he has helped. So for me, this was an honor. This was an easy call. And I also got to appreciate Captain Schmidt, who was one of the biggest supporters of him getting into this position. So congratulations and thank you for the family.
Oh, thank you.
They don't leave. One of us don't leave.
David,
Hey, come back. I just want to say, that's Bonnie, been a long time coming, brother. We were on there together. Good job, man. Thank you.
now you can leave. Thank you. And welcome on a permanent basis. Okay, item number 5 is community participation. I have one request to speak. Is there anybody, if somebody wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, you can fill out a form in the back. If not, you can raise your hand, but I have a Sabrina Tipton.
Yes, sir.
And
I didn't have an opportunity to provide you these handouts, so I'll give it to your police officer here. I'm gonna, sorry, I'm gonna try to take your jobs with them. I'm a military staff, so I'm giving 5, but if anybody wants more.
Take one for the record.
Yes, sir. Mr. Todd?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I also met with Garrett and his team on Zoom. They also know how to get a hold of me with extra information, just to throw that out. Anybody else? I can do that. Okay, thank you. First off, I want to say that you have a really great community. I had a lot of folks here in the audience that had immediately responded and shared what's gone on here. So I just wanted to share that with you. So good evening, the mayor and council and Todd, staff, and the audience. My name is Sabrina Tipton, and I'm a public information officer for the U.S. Small Business Office of Resilience and Recovery. We used to be disaster. There's a lot more that we do now as far as providing aid. We provide low interest federal loans. And because the county of Santa Barbara is now declared under FEMA, that those low interest loans also expand out to residences, renters and homeowners. Renters and homeowners can both apply for up to $40,000 to replace refrigeration, replace furniture, clothing, etc., and even a vehicle. Okay, if it was damaged during the winter storms that started on December 27th and are continuing with floods and mudslides. Okay, and the details, the fine details are here on the fact sheet. And businesses can borrow up to $2 million, and that's to repair and replace property damage and also any capital that they might have lost during the storm. Lack of customers, or not able to move their supply or continue their business, such as building construction. That's usually a good example of that. Also, businesses that are engaged in aquaculture and most nonprofits can also seek the help with capital needs under these long-term low interest federal loans. Now, I've had questions about the agricultural. So I have an official answer. If 50% of the revenue is carried from agricultural, ranching, or farming business, you need to contact the local USDA, okay? And that'll be on the website, as well as we now have a center that just opened today in San Luis Obispo. I just drove from there this afternoon, and it was about, I think, 43 minutes. Everybody's in there. So it's under FEMA. And so we are, working with FEMA on this. So FEMA is there. as well as you've got your Red Cross, you've got the USDA, there's a translator table there. I went around and spoke to everybody. There's lots of different resources in there for folks. And that's what happens when it becomes, a declaration under FEMA. And that's why your governor, Gavin Newsom, really pushed for that. And just said, we need this to be a presidential declaration because it brings in a lot more resources and not just, low interest long-term loans that we have here. I do want to let you know the address of that. It is 801 Grand Avenue. It's the Veterans Hall in San Luis Obispo. Right now, and probably for the next few weeks, if not month or more, it's going to be open Monday through Sundays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. in order to encompass all the workforce. So folks that work during, the week can go there on the weekend, and those that work on the weekend have, the weekdays. The opening was today at noon, and it was pretty busy already. So they're very ready for everybody to come there. So the big thing is that I just want everybody to know that we're here for you. You can email me, you can call me, you can ask me questions. I am providing some extra answers to Garrett and his team, and Melanie, the vice president. I'm providing extra answers, so you can also go to them as a resource just in case, I'm not readily available, but I'm available. I'm here for your county. I'm here for you. So please know that. And I'm working closely with the FEMA PIO. She couldn't come tonight because she's up in San Luis Obispo, but she's working both San Luis and she's working Santa Barbara County with me. Okay. So the mayor or any councilors, do you have any questions for me or any clarification that you need from this presentation?
Just, the incident down on Pioneer Street, I'm sure is she updated on the vehicles and stuff? Okay. We'll probably wait until going through the chief in terms of, there's some vehicles that were damaged, and FEMA would only cover one of the vehicles, and some families have three. Then they'll only cover one.
Right.
Unless there's I guess there's a 10-mile, if one lady or the mother has to go one place, the father has to go another, they may cover that.
Mm-hmm.
Does this cover additional vehicles in addition to FEMA?
Yeah. They would just need to fill out the application.
Okay.
You would go to, sorry, I did miss a beat on that. You would go to the disasterassistance.gov.
Okay,
There's also disasterassistance.gov /ES for Spanish. And on that, you're going to see FEMA, you're going to see the information for SBA. Yes, we cover vehicles. Again, it's a low interest 30-year loan though. So we want to be really clear about that. And when I look at the fact sheet, I believe the interest is about, for those that don't have any other, you'll see the columns here.
yes,
The no credit available elsewhere, your interest would be like 2.31. It's a pretty low interest, but again, folks need to qualify for that.
Right.
So that's why it would be great if folks could get up to San Luis Obispo to go into the center and have that face to face. And, when we have people that can speak Spanish to assist them, I would even do that even as a worker. I know we almost had a disaster. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. My husband's in the Air Force. We almost had our home torn up by tornadoes. And I was like, I would go straight to the center. Those, the applications, they're not hard, but you want to make sure you can get through it the first time, and they're there for that. And then right away, if there's any sort of extra resources that can be provided, the folks that are working in there, send them to other tables right away. It's huge. It's in the entire veteran hall along the whole edges of it. I was there today. So I really would encourage if folks could get up there to do it. And if not, if somebody who's really good at the internet, navigation could help folks, and especially the Spanish speakers, it's important. And the USDA also has rural. I went to their table. They have rural loans or grants. And I asked about that because I knew I was coming here tonight. It's Rural Home Loans Direct Program. And I had them brief me on it. So that would also be a table. I normally should only speak about SBA, but I'm going to go ahead and go this route. They have that, and that's under the USDA. And the gentleman who spoke to me, his name is Marcus Ramos. He's the Rural Development Specialist. And so while they're there, they have all the information. They can answer the questions. direct you exactly where you need to go, funnel you to the correct, audiences on the website. So that is my encouragement, is definitely go up to that center, especially for Guadalupe, the city of Guadalupe, from my understanding, from what Garrett and his team told me last night.
It seems that, I know there's quite a few individuals in the audience that are working with those that were impacted.
Yes.
Especially down Pioneer Street. And that connection you made with them, it needs to blossom in terms of how do we get folks down there and that don't have vehicles, that can't
Yeah.
speak on it, there's there's, that language is important for individuals to understand, so. And I
Yeah,
know you have people out in the audience that are hearing you and
Yeah.
would work for that, so,
yeah, I understand getting there. I completely understand that.
yeah.
Mayor.
But I think we'll, if we can talk, we'll speak with Garrett, with Medea and the other folks around here that Family Services Agency that Los Amigos de Guadalupe that can connect and take a trip
Yes,
with folks, so.
I think that's a great idea, Mayor. I am gonna be following up with the rural information
Right.
here, and I'm trying to find something for the nonprofit for one of the churches that was asked about. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lupe, sorry, I'm a little nervous up here.
It's okay.
Lupe had asked about your nonprofit church as well.
Right.
As maybe possibly grants, and of course, we don't have that within the SBA, but I believe the USDA may have something that, I'm gonna speak to the gentleman I spoke to. I'm going back up tomorrow. So,
Okay,
I'll even ask if there's a service, if there's a table there that's doing any
Okay.
services to come to Guadalupe, and I will do a second follow-up,
okay,
with the team
Okay.
that you have there. So, I've heard you, and I will ask about that as far as transportation. And, I know that they're here to hear you, but I'll ask that question tomorrow when I go, sir.
okay.
Okay.
Appreciate your visit, thank you. Is there
Yeah,
a question- Is there other questions from the audience?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Sabrina, were you able to find the answer to our question about nationality?
I was.
Immigration?
I showed it, and I'm gonna email it. It's not something that, I just wanna let everybody know that, it's okay if you're not quite sure about what's going on with your status. If somebody's working there, they'll ask for the forms, and if the applicant doesn't have the forms, it's fine. So, but I'm going to provide the exact the three pieces of information. I did, yeah, I found that. It's in our, procedure
Okay,
manual. Okay, so I'll check on that. So I'm gonna see if there's any sort of, transportation that could come here. That's gonna be a follow-up tomorrow that I'll do. Is there any other follow-up questions when I go to the center, even with the folks I spoke to last night? Can you think of anything else? Okay, I just want to be able to provide the answers from the source when I go up there.
we have your contact information, so that's,
Yes, you do, you
Okay.
do. I'm originally from Solvang. I
Okay.
grew up at the San Ynez Mission, so the Guadalupe Maria is my, she's my Mary.
okay.
So I always would come to Guadalupe.
Okay.
We'd come once in a while. I love the Guadalupe Maria.
All right,
So, well, I thank you very much for
Okay,
your
thank
time.
you.
And thank you for your
Thank you.
service
Thank you
to
for
your
being-
community.
thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Any other comments or request to speak? The items not on the agenda. Hearing none, we'll go to the consent calendar. The following items are presented for council approval without discussion. Is there a council member that wishes to pull in the items for consideration or further information?
Item E, just for question.
And so. Okay. Anybody else? Is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar?
I motion to approve the balance of the consent
Is
calendar.
there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All right, so we'll pull item E. Adopt resolution number 2023-04, approving the 2020 update on city sanitary sewer management plan. Sounds like you, Shannon.
Yes, sir.
So my question, I did review the document, I did review the report, and I did email Shannon some questions this morning regarding that. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on the process. Now, in terms of financial ramifications of the violation, do we know if this is something that may come up. I know it didn't come up in the initial violation, but typically our cities have fined any sort of fines or penalties for this. And if you could just kind of give me some background, that would be very helpful.
Certainly, Councilwoman Gonzalez.
I actually used to work at the Regional Water Quality Control Board when I was in college, so I've worked with them my entire career. And I have heard of agencies get fined, and the agencies that get fined tend to be the ones who don't respond in a manner that leads to compliance when a notice of violation is issued. I've heard members of the regional board describe a notice of violation as a way to get an agency's attention. It is very effective. It got my attention. And so what I am obligated to do at this point in time is to write a response to the regional board by January 31st. My intention in having this sanitary sewer management plan update approved by the council would allow me then to respond to the regional board with an updated document approved by council. There were, I think it was 5 items on the violation, all of which I have responses to that demonstrate that the city of Guadalupe has taken positive steps towards running our collection system in a manner that meets compliance. The best example that I can give is the spill of 6,200 gallons that occurred on January 28, 2021 was during a storm of 1.95 inches in 24 hours. We just had a storm of 3.7 inches in 24 hours, and we did not have a spill. And the reason for that is all the work that we've done over the course of the last 2 years in making improvements to our system. So I believe that that's a way of demonstrating to the regional board that we have made positive steps in the right direction. I believe it's those sorts of things that will keep us from being fined by the regional board.
Perfect, thank you. And then I noticed in here the dates from some of the violations dated back to 2008. So just for our knowledge, we haven't received a prior violation, is that correct? This is the first violation for us?
So I've been
Regarding
here since 2019. I can't speak to things that happened before then, but it is rather common for the regional board to ignore, and then penalize you for years and years of violations. So that's not an unusual event, but I do not know of any violations that we received prior to the time I was here.
Okay. I think that was my major question. And moving forward, you feel like this plan does address everything sufficiently with staffing and training? I really appreciated the plan. It looked like you put a lot of work into it. It was thorough. It seemed to meet everything that was listed on the violation that I reviewed. I just want to make sure that on record, you're feeling good about this moving forward, and you'll keep us updated in terms of once a response is received. Is that typically how this works?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And I will tell you that once this document is approved by council, I have training already scheduled for Thursday in order to meet that particular violation. I've already done the audit, so that's met. And so, yeah, this, I believe, will meet the regional board's requirements. We're in kind of a weird no man's land in that we're in between regulations, between the previous one and the one that starts as of June 5th. But the sanitary sewer management plan that I wrote meets the requirements of the upcoming one. So it should last us through the 5 years before another update is required.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the notation of the violation stated as long as we were in compliance with our current regulations, it was okay. And then we could update it if there's any changes moving forward with the new, like you said, the new cycle coming up. Is that correct?
Correct. That's how I understand it.
Okay, that's how I understood it as well. I just wanted to confirm. Then I'm okay moving forward and approving it. If anybody else has any other questions or discussion?
Okay, is there a motion to approve 6E?
Just edit the pro tem mayor to reflect Eugene on the last emergency contacts.
I'm sorry, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you for catching that.
I think staff's getting an idea that the 2 new council people are gonna be keeping you on your toes, so that's great. That's great. So we have a motion to consent to approve what was just mentioned by these 2 ladies. And that's approves 6E with the revision.
I'll motion to approve 60 with the revision that were stated.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Sweeney.
Thank you. Item 7, city administrative report, information only. Mr. Odom.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, staff, and public at large. I wanted to let you know that the city of Guadalupe has a community cleanup. Start on Saturday, January 28th at 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Kermit McKenzie Junior High School. I also want to put a certain new person on to stand up and introduce herself. Her name is Janice Davis, and she has a background in accounting and finance and working under CPA and she's worked for a number of different private companies. And I want to introduce Janice Davis to you. As our new finance director.
Yeah.
Thank
She's
you.
kind of a police officer.
Yeah, she-
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, great. Is that it, Todd?
I might come back to you with Tom regarding the Royal Theater update, verbally, just to come with a report where he can talk verbally to you guys.
You wanna do it now?
No, not me now. He wants to be here for that, so.
Is he here?
No, he's not. He couldn't get a car.
Okay.
So I just want to let you know that he'd like to be here and couldn't get a rental car.
He just needs to talk to SBA.
I have a question. The community cleanup, what is that? Oh, the waste management, yeah. Okay. Drop off.
Yes, the big stuff. Mhm.
Yeah, computers, big machinery, washing machines, that's there, mattresses.
That's 20, you're talking about the 28?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a regular
So,
drop off, the big stuff at McKinsey.
Is that information on our city website, that flyer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
it is.
It's on the marquee.
It's
Under
under,
events?
it's under events.
What are the markets?
Yeah, it's on the marquee as well.
It's also posted at Guadalupe Hardware.
It's also posted at Guadalupe Hardware.
All right, you good, Todd?
I'm good.
Okay, next item 8, Director of Public Safety, information only, Chief.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, council, residents. I got, I'll try to be as succinct as I possibly can. Got 3 areas. First, I'll talk about, from the emergency preparedness aspect. We got a lot of, faces I see in the audience, some serious heroes. We're still in the fight for a lot of people that have came down, assisted in numerous kind of ways. Cooking, providing assistance, cleaning up with the incident that happened on Pioneer. And part of the reason I can remember, because the mayor, I think we're on 15 straight days that we've been working. So you're gonna have to talk to my wife so I can keep employed for one. Out of the 12 families right now, our housing people have done an outstanding job. Just so everyone understands, when you have an emergency, the first thing we do is for the preservation of life. We had no deaths and no injuries. Thank God for that. And then stabilizing the scene, making sure that we can control what is going on so that we're not going back into the same kind of situation. And then after that, we pretty much work on as far as getting the needs taken care of for the people. Well, we've taken care of the safety aspect. We stabilized the scene with some of our staff and other people here, from our city attorney, Todd, Public Works, Finance, Human Resources, and my partner in crime over here as far as Rec and Debbie and council people and the mayor. We were told in a meeting by FEMA and Santa Barbara that we kind of set the model of how it responded. Now we just got to put that on paper, and I think it was more community just really kind of came out. So we've housed the 12 families that were most impacted, and right now 10 of those families will be out pretty much by the end of the week. So we're moving further ahead and getting back to the city, getting back to our regular business than we really anticipated. They're getting on their feet, and one of the lady here was talking about FEMA. Within a 24-hour period, we have one household. They got an $18,000 check within a couple of days. I've never seen the federal government move that fast in my life. That's amazing. And other people got checks too. So we're a lot further ahead. And we really got to be honest with it, because we put together a system that we streamlined and put everything in one location. It was a one-stop shop. And you got an opportunity to kind of see that because we have some unique needs, not only just in language, but we made sure that we got over the barrier of people being nervous of talking with public officials. And the only way I can really kind of play it, and I see you there, is we established a family down there where we took care of clothing, food. We got cars checked. I see Lenny, because you're out there barbecuing, and everyone else. There was not a need that was left undone. So that was an amazing job. So we should have pretty much everyone moved out well ahead of time, so that we stick to the contract of what the city obligated those funds for. And plus two, with the help of Santa Barbara, we submitted our request to recover all those funds. So that part's looking good. That was done. We got the information 15 minutes before we're supposed to submit the paperwork. So we worked late and got those things done. So we're working on all those things. And also just for those, as far as the families, we're past donations. So we've worked with all our community groups here. So now we're sending some of those donations back out to deal with other families that maybe not have been affected by this, but that are in need. So this community is stepping up and now just spreading out. So it's tremendous. And there's also a from the, I believe it's Kiwanis, am I correct? There's a barbecue fundraiser, Knights of Columbus, so you're gonna be mad.
Calm down, Lenny, calm down.
I buy a dinner so I can pay you back on that. That's gonna be on the 18th at the senior center. So we're really blessed the way the city responded and our community. It's nice because there's other communities that were really affected. I'm not gonna say what those other communities were, but for us to get singled out and everyone is just really stating how well we did it. And all I can do is tell for Pat was there that night and the mayor. We did more fumbling around in the dark and just kind of took care of issues. So that part was really amazing, and we're really happy, and everyone here that's in the audience that participated. And for my favorite family that sat in the front, their son even got a hold of me, who's in the fire academy, asking what can he do after he gets off. That's Guadalupe for you. So I appreciate your kid. The other part I'd like to kind of bring up is two is glad this is on what you're speaking, is I would hope the city council would look to maybe give the city, or at least our city administrators, some assistance and help. We are crashing right now at the police department, almost down to just 3 personnel because of injuries and everything else. And it takes well over 6 months to hire an officer. We're just halfway through our fiscal year. If this is something that can be brought up to be discussed, my lieutenant and I, we're the morning shift, among other things. And the mayor has seen, we're running the EOC. I'm still responding to radio calls. Right here to my left is our fire captain, who's been on duty, I don't know how many hours, because of short staffing. So, you know, that's something that has, it's really started to kind of take effect. And we hope that's something maybe the council can help to give our staff direction and assistance. And I always know that there's a financial crunch, but we're really hurting, and we could use some guidance and assistance to try to get some more officers. And that kind of falls into the last part is, even though we're now as a department, we're trying to pivot right now. I think there's a lady that was from SLO that was just kind of talked. We just got information there. There was an incident that occurred a couple days back in Memphis, Tennessee, where 5 officers severely beat a gentleman, and the gentleman later died. And the word is right now, we're going up and down the state. The state has contacted a lot of departments, put out the information that the Memphis Police Department is going to release the video either Thursday or Friday. And so a lot of departments are expressing they've had information of possible riots that may be occurring, so they're putting together their riot teams. And so everyone's being asked to check in what kind of personnel that they could send if something does happen. So everyone's kind of prepping for this video to kind of come out. And it's supposed to be pretty shocking. So, you know, that just kind of goes on the back of things, is as we get through one incident, we're pivoting to the next thing to kind of be prepared. Because bottom line, and I appreciate this, I really got to learn this firsthand from our mayor. It is about service. And what are we doing for, that's why we're all here. Plain and simple, is the people that are sitting out there, they rely on us. And so, yeah, and I thank you for the time. Last part is our safety alert. We've been putting out that information. Now I think we're up to about 148 people, 160 people that have signed up for safety alerts, but unfortunately, I think we're a population of 8,000 to 9,000 people. So I'm asking, please get that word out. Look on our website, sign up for safety alerts. That's the only way that we can really communicate, be safe. And if you know somebody who hasn't, I'd ask, please talk to them so they can sign up for that system. With that's my report. Any questions, Mr. Mayor or Council?
Comment, and thanks, Chief, for the update. On the donation side of things, all the residents that were down there lost everything. Clothes, some vehicles, 4 or 5 vehicles were lost. And what had happened is that through the generosity of a whole bunch of folks, microwaves were donated by individuals. They were purchased and donated to individuals. There was 10 rooms there, so everybody got a microwave. What's going to happen is that some of these residences that they're going into don't have the furniture. So donations in terms of clothing, I think we're good with that. But I think if anybody would like to offer a Food Max gift certificate or whatever you call those things, or any card that they can actually give those cards to either Los Amigos de Guadalupe at the senior center or to Family Services Center. I don't, where are you located now? Is she here? Maria?
Oh, that's Riverview.
Well, she's at Riverview, or she's at behind the court, the Guadalupe court. So donations are still needed if you feel that in your heart. Clothing and stuff, we're good with that, but food is a big thing. So we're still going to hit up the food bank to get in additional food for individuals. So if you desire to continue with support, then food is important, or a card that you can buy whatever they need. Now it comes down to personal needs. So
I would even say maybe like a Walmart or Target,
Exactly.
or that they can get both. And if they need towels,
Yeah.
or they need food, they can
Right.
get both. That would be
Right.
wonderful.
okay, thanks, Chief, for that. We'll go to public hearing, Central Park conceptual design. Shannon.
Good evening, thank you. I'm going to give a brief description to bring everybody up to speed on this project, and then I'm going to turn it over to Eric and Brooke from Pacific Coast Land Design to share the conceptual design for this project. In March of last year, we were awarded over $4.8 million through the 2018 Parks Bond Act statewide park development and community revitalization program. It's a long time, to renovate Central Park. In July, we approved a contract with Pacific Coast Land Design to prepare plans and specifications for this project. Part of the grant application was to put a conceptual design together, and that was done with some public input. I don't know if you remember the charrettes that were held in Central Park. That final conceptual design, the initial conceptual design, which was attachment one of the staff report, did not take into account site constraints such as the delineation of right of way, topography, and the location of utilities. So prior to developing plans and specifications, Pacific Coast Land Design is requesting your approval of the revised conceptual design, which contains all the basic features that existed in the initial conceptual design, but there have been some adjustments on where the features are placed and to take advantage of existing topography and for the most efficient use of existing utility location. In addition, they included some additional design elements from public comment. And the public really liked the theme of dunes, and so you'll see how dunes have been incorporated. The revised conceptual design was presented to the Recreation Parks Commission in December, and they unanimously recommend the revised conceptual plan. I've been in regular communication with Pacific Coast Land Design to make sure that the design that they've put forward will stay within the budgeted amounts. Now I'd like to turn it over to Eric and Brooke to share some details of the conceptual design itself.
Good evening.
Welcome.
For having us. My name is Brooke McDonald. I'm a landscape architect at Pacific Coast Land Design, and Eric Berg is the principal there. So we're hoping to walk you through our package. Some of you were at our public outreach workshop that we had in October, but not all of you. So the first part of our conceptual package goes through that process, some of the things we presented there. If you go to the next page. So yes, that is the original grant application concept plan. Just to refresh your memories, the dog park, the skate park are located along the railroad tracks there. The skate park closest to the pedestrian bridge, I want to make note of that. And then the next sheet. When we started the project, we went to the site and we took a look at the opportunities and constraints on the site. The civil engineer went out and did their survey, and we saw that the right of way for the park and the railroad runs along the existing block wall behind the railroad tower. So part of the existing park that you know now isn't really part of this project. We're not allowed to use those grant funds outside that property line. But it's a good opportunity to use that space as a buffer zone from the railroad tracks down. So part of our process will be to put a fence there and you create more of a buffer between that. We also took a look at the way the existing topography works, and in that bottom corner closest to the pedestrian bridge, that's where all the water is draining. And we knew that that could be a conflict with the skate park. So next page. These are the boards that we brought to the public outreach, and we wanted the community to come together and vote on different elements to use in the park. So these are the results from that outreach. The overwhelming top vote for park theme was the dunes theme. So we're using that, and people also voted on the type of climbing structure they wanted, on the types of adult exercise equipment and the other play elements. And so these are the results from that we've incorporated into our conceptual plan. Next. There's some photos from the outreach meeting. Next. And then this skate park is a large component of this park. And so these were the boards that were presented at that public outreach meeting and the results from that. Talking about the type of terrain and skill level that was needed and wanted by the community in the skate park. Next. Thank you. And then our arborist went out and did an existing tree inventory. The trees that you see in red are ones to be removed due to poor health or construction. Green are the ones to remain. But I do want to point out when we get to the site plan that we are planting a lot of trees. So there's not going to be a significant loss in the long run. A lot of those were just in poor health. Next slide.
Sure. Thanks, Brooke. This is our conceptual plan that we're presenting tonight. As Shannon kind of laid out for you in her initial staff evaluations, there are a few subtle changes that you'll catch. It largely lays out per the grant site plan as far as spatial organization. The big flip here you're going to see is that the skate park and the dog park have traded places. And Brooke kind of alluded to one of the primary reasons for that is the heavy concrete located that has to be constructed as part of the skate park is not an obvious, it's not a great fit for the lowest spot of the park where you have to drain water. So flipping those two was one of the first things we noticed. Another one is where the public restroom was located. It was in the original grant site plan, more on the southern end of the park, which is the left-hand side of the screen. It's now located more in this kind of intergenerational space on the 10th Street for a couple of reasons. One, usage, but also proximity to utility connections. That is a better location to get to water and sewer in both of those locations. So those are the primary differences. The other thing this layout really kind of capitalizes, and you'll see more in the rendering, it's difficult to see in this, is that, as Shannon kind of alluded to, how we're now incorporating the dunes kind of theme into the park. And where you're really going to see that is in the topography, but also a little bit in the colors and the textures that we're using, some of the planting materials. So if you go to the next slide, we have some beautiful oh, this is actually the lighting concept, so the site lighting concept. You know, we're still working through the details at a conceptual level. One of the things we're working through right now is the level of concept site or the site lighting that will be present on the site. This is very much a work in progress, but the point here is to show you that we are planning to light the park at night and working with a budget to do so, how we're going to do that. Also light the skate park for safe usage in after hours as needed. So just kind of showing that work in progress. You can go to the next slide. So this is kind of our overall concept rendering. This is taken from the bridge overlooking the, how the dog park kind of wraps around. So this is the southern edge, the pedestrian bridge edge with the dog park in the foreground. You can kind of see the skate park on the right-hand side of the street and that new fence line that Brooke talked about. We'll see some more details. You can see kind of an illusion of what we're going to show you here is the dunes theme. Another thing we're working that was incorporated with the grant, we're working with Shannon, is still early in progress, is how we're going to incorporate that dunes theme or some sort of art into the repainting of the water tower. And so you can kind of see the illusion of some sort of graphic up there. That's very much a work in progress, but the idea is that it will hopefully represent the dunes theme and Guadalupe at its core. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. These are some more detailed renderings, again, a little small. I think one of the best ones here to kind of capture is the top right image, which are these picnic areas. And you can see this landform in the background. That is a kind of interpretation of the dunes form. It just happened to work out kind of serendipitously that it's also going to help prevent or block prevailing winds from the coastal side of the park so that people using those picnic areas and barbecues can be a little bit sheltered from the wind while capturing this kind of natural landform. So it really echoes both the ecology, natural systems that are at play here in Guadalupe, some of the culture, as well as enhances the use for everyone and kind of takes those to core. You can kind of see on the bottom left, that's an intergenerational space. The public restroom is what we call Portland Loo. It's a specific fabricator made public restroom is in the background there. It's that kind of silvery thing. The playground spaces with, these are the favored amenities that were voted on that you're seeing spatially organized in that playground in the bottom right picture, and then the basketball court on the top left. So I kind of went, okay, not in a logical, not in a logical way through that, but you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
These are some concept images that we're pulling from, so you can really see the idea that we're using the dunes theme in the bottom left corner, the idea of just these natural grasses and that mounding to bring them out as picnic areas and block wind and still incorporate the dunes into it. And some of these are the chosen adult exercise equipment, restroom spinners, things like that. We're looking at the picture kind of on the right middle of the car, how we can incorporate more shade into the parking lot. Next slide. And this is an enlargement of the skate park. And I am not a skate park expert. He had to really explain what all these were, but.
We're fortunate to be working with a
Yes.
world-class skate park designer on this project. His name is Jackson Satzel. He's worked on parks all over the world, including the skate parks at the 2020 is the Tokyo Games.
Tokyo.
So, yeah, he's amazing. He could speak more. If anybody has any questions, he could speak more on this. Neither one of us are skaters,
But the next slide will show you renderings of the skate park to get a better idea, of the different elements and features in there, the ramps, the rails, and the stairs. But a feature that it's still a work in progress. We're working on trying to incorporate that dune theme into that back wall along the skate park that runs along the railroad tracks, which I think would be a really unique and fun feature for the park.
yeah, very much a work. That's one that's a brain supper, but it's gonna be a really fun detail to work out as we move forward. It's a really cool. He came up with that and I'm like, yes.
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 Next slide, please. And this, we wanted to highlight where that grant money is going. So when, the grant was written, there were certain line items that were costed, and this is highlighting what is tied to those. So we have dog park, skate park, basketball court, the bocce court, game board tables, that's all in that intergenerational corner that's closest to 10th Street, closest to the senior center on that side. Adult fitness equipment, next slide.
These are really kind of honoring the intent of the grant,
Yes,
as Brooke kind of mentioned, so it's more of almost a grant administration, kind of visually seeing where the money that was requested in the grant is going in the application of the park. And these are all the original line items that were requested in the grant. Nothing has changed at this point.
right, so talking about the public art, replacing fencing, art on the water tower, swings and rockers and spinners in the play area, picnic tables and barbecues, next. And then lighting, upgrades to the existing sidewalk, connecting people from 9th to 10th Street. Highlighting areas where there would be, walls for public art and upgraded landscape and art in the park as well.
I think that's it.
That is the end.
You know, I'm, if I may ask a question on the lighting, of course, there's a lot of housing around there, and I'm sure that's gonna be dealt with in terms of down the,
Yeah,
down the lighting, so.
yes.
We're actually having conversations with Shannon right now, because if you were to look at that, it's on the lighting picture right now. If you go to the park right now, 2 of the lights that are on the water tower I think were intended to point up at the water tower to light at night, have been turned down and are providing
Some,
Security.
a vast amount of the light that is in the park
Yeah.
as you see it right now.
okay,
And so in conversations with Shannon, that is, they're gonna change in the parks to become more self-supportive in its own lighting scheme. That will be downcast, night sky ordinance lighting that won't cast up, but also be shielded from light glare across property lines.
okay.
We're trying to find a balance too between providing security,
Yes,
lighting throughout, so you can get through and feel safe, but also maybe not encouraging night use.
Yeah,
Right.
If you want in the park and close it,
It's-
that does. Yeah.
it's a double-edged, it's a very difficult tightrope. to
Right.
walk.
Yeah.
yeah. You don't
And
want
especially with
to,
skate
yeah.
parks, because
Right.
skate parks need to be lit to a certain safety.
Right.
threshold, so.
In terms of the process, at what point is it decided, like, is there an opportunity for solar? To have this be sort of self-sufficient? Is there any other grant opportunities to have that paid for separately, or is that even incorporated into the plan at all?
I think we're talking about electrical generation at the moment. Solar comes with its own kind of issues. You have to have batteries. Essentially, battery technology is the greatest right now. So we're working on projects that have solar powered lighting. And it's obvious, honestly, from everything we're talking to, it's more of a maintenance nightmare than it is a bonus. That's what a lot of jurisdictions are running into. We're looking for opportunities to incorporate. So the chance that the Portland Loop theoretically could be an AC powered model, there's not a lot of electrical demand, or I mean, a solar powered model, sorry. There's not a lot of electrical demand, and that could be a feature. Other smaller features as a whole, because the energy intensity of these lights is all required to be LED underneath California Energy Code, the electrical and power demand of the park will not be significant.
Okay, that's good to know.
Council, any questions of them while they're here? Because we're gonna open up to the public. So. Go ahead and, is there-
Councilmember Lopez?
okay,
You did mention existing sidewalks and renovating, was that to be changed out, or we're using that existing curve that we have now?
We are changing it. We had to change it to make room for the skate park. And we did know that we needed to do some changes too for accessibility to the park.
Thank you.
It still echoes that form, and we're looking at ways, knowing that we're gonna demolish that concrete, we're looking at ways of reusing that material potentially on site. So,
any more questions from the council? We'll go ahead and, we're gonna designate this as public hearing, Phil, in terms of, okay, that what comes at, 6:58, open up to public hearing. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on, what you see presented? Come on up. Yeah, there's still 2 individuals there.
Oh, there's someone else?
Pardon?
It was just a question and a comment that,
Sir, can you state your name?
oh, sorry, Albert Nunez, a resident. I think Shirley Boydston talked to you about the 50-foot conifer pine tree, and it's still included, right?
Yeah, can we go back to the
That's
state
how I'm
site?
here.
Yeah, it had the red and green trees in there. Early on in the set. There, yeah, so that tree
It's
is
the leftmost tree
Yeah.
right next to the.
right next to the pedestrian, no, next to the pedestrian. Yeah, that one is staying, it's in good health, but also it's outside our scope because it's outside the property line.
Oh, so it
So
doesn't.
we
even-
can't touch it.
Okay. Well, I had this great little thing where I wrote. Thank you. I'm actually up here not complaining. I'm thanking you. The Historical Society wanted to thank you because that tree was planted in memory of Jose Rubalcaba, who was instrumental and the first president of the Historical Society. It was planted 20 years ago, in the memory of him. And so I was here.
20 years
That's
ago? And it's
huge.
Well,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
It is.
no, I was here to thank you, but,
Okay.
No, thanks for playing.
Yeah, thanks, yes.
How the water's going, right?
That's why.
Good point.
Have another gentleman that would like to approach.
Sorry. Hello, thank you. Abraham Carmona, resident. The only concern I had was with the actual grant for $4.5 million grant. Essentially, cost overrun with these public projects kind of tends to happen a lot. So where have you budgeted currently for the project? The whole grant?
We're just under, yeah,
You're just under?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that grant money is actually split a little bit. Some of it goes to construction, some of it goes to pay a contract, some of it's used by the city. So I think it's about 80% of it is going to the construction, so something like $3.2 million. It's towards the construction of the park. We've done to our best due diligence at this point in time, a cost estimate that shows with a contingency that we are right at or just barely under that $3.2 million. So
These were only with partners that you guys work with, or is it open for bidding?
it will be open for bidding. We do estimates alone, so this will be a public bid project when we finish the plan.
And as far as your costs, how much, have you included the costs, from design perspective into, from the actual design?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
And how much has that been allotted?
I would just want to mention that, attachment 3
Oh, I didn't
The
see,
staff
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
is
the
the conceptual design cost estimate.
Is there any others? I didn't see that up there.
I'm happy to put them on.
Okay.
But it has over $500,000 in construction contingency alone. And even with that contingency in there, it is under the granted amount.
You know, because they're beginning the whole construction project and essentially stopping because funds run out.
Right, well, and we always have in the back of our heads as we're designing. If we get to that point, what we can value engineer, where we can bring these cost savings here and there without sacrificing the elements that are required for the grant and that the community really wants.
Thank you.
We're also having monthly meetings and Eric and Brooke are very used to hearing you say, where's the budget?
Oh, yeah, okay. Can I, would you, can hear your comment back here, question?
Don't know, where you're at in the process, but, when would you include us for public safety to, be able to look at some safety features? We make sure we're not gonna go over budget on it, but we'd like to be included.
There are opportunities through the design process. This is simply approval of the conceptual design. There will be, what was it, 60%?
We have 2 design development submittals, 50 and 100, and then PSC submittals,
Right.
2 or 3 of those. There's
So-
several more milestones. to check.
So at the 50%, we're going to be given the drawings, and that will be our opportunity to go through them with a fine tooth comb and add elements that need to be.
Our take is the sooner the better.
Any more public comment? Council, so at 7:03, we'll close public comment. Back to the council on approval of the resolution 2023-06. It's a so wish. Is there a motion on that? To approve that?
A motion to approve, resolution number 2023-06.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Eugene Custis Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Christina Hernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozelle,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
Aye, all ayes. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
Really great. Thank you so much. I have to at home.
We'll go to regular business now. Item 10, finding the public purpose for expenditures and required under emergency occupancy agreement for temporary lodging of displaced city residents and confirming ratification of the agreement as revised by the city council meeting on January 17, 2023. Mr. Senko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You just basically gave my staff report, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to go into a lot of detail. You're very well familiar with the underlying facts, and for those out there in the staff report. Basically, as you know, the agreement required ratification by the full council in order to be legally effective and binding. That was done at the last meeting, the special meeting on January 17th. At that meeting also, at my request, the council requested a change to the contract so that as units were emptied, vacated by tenants, that the city wasn't still going to be on the hook to pay for those, because the contract, the way it was worded, would have required to pay for the city to pay for empty units. And so Mr. Smollis, the owner or the manager, graciously agreed to that modification. And so that change to the contract was agreed to, and he provided a signed signature, which is attached to the agreement. So we need the resolution approved to authorize the mayor to sign that agreement on behalf of the city, and then it's a done deal. The other issue is the main issue, the finding of a public purpose. As I said at the previous meeting, it's necessary, in my opinion, to make a finding that the funds were used in this way for a public purpose, so that there's no question that it would be an illegal gift of public funds, which is of course not allowed. I provided 5 suggested for public purpose findings that are in the resolution, also summarized in the staff report. That was what I was able to come up with on pretty short notice. As you know, the staff report was, the council meeting was Tuesday, and the city administrative assistant was looking for the staff report the next day. So I had to turn it around quickly. If there's any other findings that the council would like to include in that resolution, I'm certainly willing to add them. But I believe these are sufficient to withstand any legal challenge. That ends my report. Thank you.
Any discussion with the council? Comments? Is there a motion to approve resolution 2023-07?
I motion to approve resolution number 2023-07. I will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Eugene Custis Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Christina Hernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozelle,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
All right, all ayes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, next item is new electric bus paint schematic. Shannon.
Yes, good evening. So what I'm looking for here is council direction on a preferred paint schematic and treatment for an electric bus. The fiscal year budget includes funding for the purchase of a new electric bus. One of these things is about $1 million. We managed to cobble together 3 separate grants in order to purchase one. We issued the purchase order back in August. The manufacture of the bus is scheduled to be completed update April, not late January. Upon completion, the bus has a primer coat of very boring white paint. So we have a choice of either painting or wrapping the bus. Now, paint job is the standard, you paint it with a paint. A wrap is more of a material that you put on top of it. Painting is more expensive than wrapping initially. However, it's easier to repair a paint job than it is to repair a wrapping that's on the bus. So there are 3 schemes presented in the staff report for council's consideration. And along with each one of these schematics is the cost to wrap and the cost to paint. So schematic A is the existing paint scheme. It's what you're used to seeing. The Guadalupe buses look like. It's that white on top with the blue on the bottom and the red stripe. Cost to wrap that is only $5,400 and the cost to paint is almost $16,000. We could go with some more exciting schematics. If we choose to make our bus go along with the theme of our Central Park, we can do some dunes appearances. Schematic B is dunes with a blue top. Cost to wrap that is $11,800 and the cost to paint it is the same as the boring bus, $16,000.
The boring bus.
I'm not giving my opinion on that all here. Okay, a schematic C is, the dunes with the white top. The cost to wrap that is in between schematic A and schematic B, and the cost to paint it is the same. So all of them cost almost $16,000 to paint. But the wrapping jobs run from either, $3,700 to $5,800, and I don't like paint. I want somebody else to do that. So I'm really hoping that council can give me some direction as to what you like, and we'll make sure that the bus looks like that when we get it.
I have a question. Do you know, you mentioned that it's easier to repair paint versus wrap. Do you know about how long each one lasts typically? Do we have kind of like a guesstimate or an idea? I'm just thinking in terms of financial investment.
That's a great question. It really depends on how much the bus gets hit.
Yeah. Or damage.
Exactly.
I guess you can answer.
Yeah,
So for,
yeah.
We got an expert here. I worked at a sign shop for many years prior to working here. So the wrap itself, the lifespan of the wrapping material is approximately 10 years. So it has to be updated at least every 10 years in order for it to be effective. Other than that, it starts to crack and peel and it doesn't look very nice. The paint on the other side is pretty much unlimited, as long as it's in paint.
Okay, so it sounds like a better investment in the paint than the wrap, just based on that information.
I will also say that the bus doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And typically, it's usually 12 to 15 years is what we usually get a bus as far as replacement.
And is that the same for electric versus gas bus? Is it the same? Well, I don't know.
Gas or electric doesn't, that's,
So it's
I'm a big believer in electric.
challenging to know how long the electric buses are going to last. We're not quite a guinea pig. There are some electric buses out there, but not. So
Sounds
hard to say.
Steve, you had a question,
no,
comment?
no, that was, yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that has the, there's way back there, you meant?
There's three.
There's three, okay. Okay, why don't you come over here?
I'm sorry.
Is it Abraham?
Yeah. Carmona, CARMONA. Sorry, I just got off the job.
Okay.
So essentially, I'm very happy you guys are getting electric bus. That's awesome. I would suggest that, I don't know, was that expensive? Because where I used to work, we had a union labor, so it was part of the daily routine of maintaining buses. They would stripe them and decal and whatever. Wrapping wouldn't be a bad option, just because it's cheaper. And as far as I know, these buses are gonna be driving up and down Main Street and they're gonna get dirty with the paint. So essentially, the best option, in my opinion, would be wrapping a bus. And they do tend to last long. Did I lose your question? I'm sorry, I'm like.
No, you're
Okay. So essentially, we had electric buses. I worked for the Chicago Transit Agency, and we wrapped those electric buses. Just because the painting, we're kind of scared that the painting might damage the fiberglass, so they have to be as light as possible. So wrapping the fiberglass was like the easiest solution, as opposed to the diesel run engine buses. We painted them because we really didn't care. They're aluminum based, whatever. I'm pretty sure this bus is going to be about 50-50. I do suggest you guys wrap it because it's cheaper. But yeah, if you guys have a question there, aside from that, just from my expertise with the buses.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you. There's Sue.
Good evening.
got a little experience. I ran the only profit-making bus system in San Luis County for the Point San Luis Lighthouse Keepers. And we got ourselves an open air truck. And we could paint it or we could wrap it. One of the features about wrapping it, besides the fact that you can do it 4 times for the same price, is that you can actually wrap the windows where they exist and people can see out just fine. If you can continue to have the decoration design on windows. And the other thing is by doing that, if there's bright sun coming in one side, it shelters the people inside. So enjoy your decision.
We will. There's somebody in that corner there. No, there was another person.
Sorry, chatting tonight. Albert Nunes, just a comment. It may be past this stage, but is it a possibility to use part of the bus as something to push out or advertise things that the city needs to push out, like advertising of the event, the event's alert system, or a capital campaign or something like that. And then if you were to have a space that you would use interchangeably, then you would make the colors more neutral so that that would pop out.
Right now, it's not one that we've considered in the past, so thank you for bringing that up.
Any more comments? Okay, council, opinions, votes.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Mr. Carmona. As far as the wrap, how durable is that? Can somebody
Yeah, it says.
peel and damage it by just standing outside and board might wanna?
It's pretty tight, specifically at the city level, every holiday season, the transit agency will ramp a holiday bus. And this will run from like November to mid-January, right? It's pretty, essentially, we'll put it through the bus wash constantly daily because of the snow and the mud and all that. And these bristles on the brushes, they're very like hard, like you get cut if you run your finger across with it. So once the bus comes out, it's like very durable, like we never saw any damage. It's not to say that somebody with a knife and starts chipping away at it, it's not gonna damage it, but it's also keep in mind that a bus that's painted, some kid could easily go up to it and put graffiti on it. I've seen it, I have pictures of it, I can show the city council, just as examples. And then you're gonna have to paint over that again, right? As opposed to the wrap, somebody does do that, you just take off the wrap or part of it, because it's all stenciled out, and you just put a replacement, which is not always gonna be $3,600 or whatever. I'm sure the provider of the sign rep could just give you that part, right? And I like this idea because we did advertise at the city level to private companies. We had these cutouts on the side of the bus and inside, and we advertised to local companies, and they paid a monthly fee for that advertisement, and we could remove it. But yeah, it's very durable. It's something that's gonna fly off with the winds, you know.
It doesn't bubble up, it adheres pretty
If it's installed correctly, it should last. And I would say it will last at least, I've seen it, I worked there for 5 years and I never saw something damaged unless it was in a complete crash. And that's something different that we can prevent, but it's very durable and something you guys should consider.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions from council about voting for ABC?
I like both of the dunes plans, that they kind of incorporate the design of the new
Central
park.
Park.
that they
So
were
which one's
talking
that? Is
about.
that C?
That's B or
B.
C. I like B, prefer B.
Okay, how about you, Bill?
I also, I'll agree with the councilwoman here that B looks, I mean, it does incorporate the dunes and it actually promotes us just with that alone, that design compared to the C, where it's kind of hard to make out where the water line and the distant line, so I think the swing and the dunes is a nice, I like B.
It doesn't get stand up.
And you know
Yeah,
what
you're
it
right.
is, there's more clarity to it.
I agree.
B.
G,
I also could agree with Councilwoman Salvi and Councilman Lopez. I like option B, the way it looks, so it just stands out more. It's not so plain.
I like B, but I also like that C, you can wrap it right there 3 times, it's 5,100, so I'm just looking, if something was to happen, I could do it 2 or 3 times. And it kind of goes with schematic A as well, our bus used to be white, so it kind of is familiar. I did get a call from CEC Santa Barbara, and they were very excited about this bus wrap.
my feeling is, the cost, and I think, I like C because in the dark, this purple is dark, and you're looking at the white, you can see that bus coming, so I would go with C. So what do we got?
May I offer a suggestion? These were simply 2 renditions that were made. If you like the concept of B because the dunes stand out more, but you like the white of C, I can combine the 2. The reason why the wrap on schematic C is cheaper is because you're not wrapping the white.
Yeah,
So you can probably still get the price of C, but get more of the standout of the dunes from B.
when are we looking at, approval that you need to have this approved?
If, would you like me, do you need me to bring it back to you?
Not to me, my choice is the least amount, the 5,800 versus 11,800.
I feel like I have enough direction to basically do a blend between B and C to provide the cost of C, but a little bit more of the standout from B. That's the direction that I need in order to move forward. Also, like ask the designer to tweak it a little to do that. So you are good with that.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
We combine the 2, I mean.
Yeah,
Best of both worlds.
I love that.
I'll go ahead
Thanks
and
for presenting
proceed.
that option.
Thank you. For
I mean, it looks like undeniable, that's a Waddle Dee bus.
All right, we've got item 12, Caltrans Guadalupe Street ADA project update. Shannon, you're up again.
Yes. All right, so this is simply an update to the Caltrans Guadalupe Street ADA project. And just to talk about new steps. Caltrans has a lot of projects in Guadalupe right now. This one is a specific project that involves removing and replacing all of the sidewalk from just south of the San River Bridge to Highway 166. And it actually includes part of 166 as well up to Obispo Street. So Caltrans refers to this project as the Guadalupe ADA project because its initial purpose was to fix the sidewalks, which they're not level. There are lots of ways in which they do not meet ADA standards. So they call it that, but they discussed adding the concept of complete streets. Complete streets is a relatively new Caltrans concept, and what it is to make the streets more walkable, more friendly for all users, bicycles, pedestrians, transit riders, etc. And they include things like what they call street furniture, benches and trash cans and trees and that sort of thing. In late 2021, Caltrans had requested city input on desired elements, and I presented a summary of the project to you in December of 2021. Following that meeting, and you had recommended that a letter be sent to Caltrans with some of our desired elements, and that letter is in the staff report. That's attachment 2. Caltrans is currently at 30% design stage. I attended that 30% constructability meeting. It was me and 20 Caltrans people. The review of the drawings revealed that Caltrans has not incorporated many of the requested elements, such as removal of new street pullouts, inclusion of a curb inset in front of the transit station, And when I asked about why those elements weren't included, I would get answers like, well, removing the mid-street bulb outs will create a visual impact that we're not sure the public would want. So we want the public to weigh in on that before we're willing to take them out. And yet here they are on the 30% drawings. So I have to admit, I got frustrated during the meeting, probably said something like, you're not listening to us. But that's how I felt, is I really felt like they weren't really listening to the community. To gauge public sentiment from stakeholders would be greatly impacted by the project, namely the business owners along Guadalupe Street. I decided to go talk to them at the December 7th Guadalupe Business Association meeting. And I basically shared the current status of the project. I shared the letter that was sent in December 2021, and I shared the drawings. I have a set of these drawings here that's huge and unwieldy, but anybody's welcome to look at them if they wish. So we met at that meeting, and they expressed as much frustration as I did that some of these items hadn't been incorporated. They, the GBA members said, hey, let's do a letter writing campaign, which I totally dug the idea. It's total Parks and Recs. There you go. So I think that that's awesome. And so following that meeting, I put some template letters together so that they would have something to work with. And Belinda shared with me right before this meeting that I think they have over 300 letters written. And the template letters are as attachment 3. So the GBA members, so these letters are prepared and ready to send out. The project manager from Caltrans caught wind of this letter writing campaign. I'm not exactly sure how, but he and I spoke this morning. And he expressed interest in working with our community on making sure that we would have some additional input. So the next meeting, or the next task on their end is the 60% review. My first question was, well, at 60% review, are you still willing to make changes based on public input? My fear was that at 60%, they would say, well, we're too far along, and then ignore it. He has indicated to me that no, in fact, that is not too late for public input. Okay. We have these letters to send, and want to make sure that the council was aware that this was going on. In addition, the GBA members helped develop a list of additional stakeholders that we may wish to contact for support, including truck companies, politicians, public safety agencies, the city's contract transit operator, the school district, local bicycle clubs, local nonprofit agencies, as well as any interested residents and business owners. And I wanted to make sure that council was comfortable with reaching out to those people, specifically the politicians, for support in this. Economic development along Guadalupe Street is a key element of improving the city. We want to make sure that that street and its design reflects what we want for the future of the community. So I wanted to bring you up to speed, let you ask any questions, make sure that we were headed in the right direction for the future of this project.
My feeling is we stated a while back what we wanted, and we need to have them toe the line. I would suggest that it hasn't been made already, is that SBCAG, this be sent to SBCAG, because you have all the supervisors and you have all the city representatives, and the North County have never, to me, received the due funds and the due attention from Caltrans. We get a lot of stuff approved for South County, millions and millions of dollars, and yet North County here gets very little. So Supervisor Nelson and Supervisor Levanino are very supportive of what's going on. So is Supervisor Hartman. So get these letters to them too. So before our next SBCAG meeting, so that it's in the queue. So.
Also have support to continue in this path.
Yes.
I have a question. You indicated you spoke to, he called you this morning, the representative?
Yeah, Mike Liu, the project manager at Caltrans. He and I have been playing phone tag for a week, but we finally connected this morning.
Did he indicate when he was going to be able to get back to you with any of the changes or the updates, or was it just letting you know and advising you that that would happen?
No, so he let me, well, at the 30% constructability meeting, which, what date was that? I think it was in November. They had said that the 60% construction drawings were slated for February. He indicated that now at this point it's at March. And then he said that the 100% drawings weren't slated to be completed for a year after that. So, yeah, so what that suggests is that between 60 and 100, we should have some say. And so I think that that's what we're going to push for.
I have a second question. Do you have? No, while the call is lovely, in sentiment, I think that accountability is really important because the track record is not there for them completing the projects that they've already indicated they're gonna do in this area. And unfortunately, we have 166 and Highway 1, our main streets, and so it ties our hands when we're trying to make improvements. And so this is not a new issue, and I'm really pleased that the community is really participating in the process and speaking up because we need that. We need that encouragement. So I just really appreciate the work you're doing. I am hesitant to sort of, shout for joy that he called today. I am grateful that he's on the radar, but I would definitely have some sort of accountability built into that conversation moving forward. Sorry, go ahead.
No apologies. I believe maybe about 4 years ago, did Caltrans not have a general plan update or downtown revitalization at the Legion? I remember there was a Caltrans map. No, please remember it was at the Legion. There was a general plan update. And Caltrans
You're right.
there as well.
Yeah.
There was.
There was,
Yes.
yeah.
And so Caltrans, I think it was about 4 years ago, and all of us community members were there. We gave input
Yeah.
of what we wanted to see in the
Right.
coming years. And so I feel that documentation should also be brought back up because we gave our input as community members.
Correct.
Thank you. Now that I'm aware that that meeting occurred, I'll seek it out and see if I can find that documentation and use that as support to the documentation that we have as well.
It was how to revitalize downtown by making biking accessible, also adding, removing
Yeah.
those bolts with the plans, removing that and adding maybe 4 lanes. Because they said that, well, we have enough lanes to create 4 on Oakview Street.
Interesting, because that's not at all what they have in this, because I
I
like.
believe that was 2018, right? When this happened?
I think it was.
It was around 2018. when this
Now,
happened.
and this isn't the mobility and revitalization plan, is it?
Well,
Or was it specific to Caltrans or was it the mobility and
I
revitalization
remember
plan?
there was a.
no, this was for
Caltrans.
Caltrans project, yeah.
Interesting, okay.
Early.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. I'll try
I
to
think it
find
was
it.
just, I know there was a Caltrans representative.
Yeah, they're part of it.
Yeah.
They're part of the process, and we did the walk and all this other stuff.
If you were to change it to 4 lanes, there will be no parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had several different layouts, so it was really nicely put out. So maybe if we can find that information. There's different schemes that, yeah, showed that.
Okay, so we will continue working towards making sure that Guadalupe gets voice on this. It's too important to let Caltrans decide
Okay.
what's going to happen there.
That's what happened is that, the area, the district manager retired, so every time somebody retires and new stuff come in, they kick it back, so then they bring it back up 3 years later. Just like that, Black Road, they're supposed to have an light there last year. And they're still not there, so we've got to continue to pressure that. Lupe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was gonna speak on this item, but it is very frustrating with Caltrans on a lot of different levels. But previously, and I really liked your idea about sending it to CAG. However, Mr. Mayor, when I was mayor many years ago, I was the chairman of SB CAG.
Mhm.
I don't know who the chairman is right now. But anyway, my suggestion would be that you send a letter that it be included in the consent calendar, and that the chair send a letter to Caltrans saying, hey, we support this. And we want to support Guadalupe, and hopefully Caltrans gets the message that it's coming from all of us, CAG, 100%.
I think it's Osborne that's the chair now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, from Janelle.
Yeah, and she also said whatever she can do for us. I don't know, so.
So my suggestion is that they could put it in the consent calendar, and then she signs it.
Okay, let's go. Okay. Yeah, the gentleman was. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to disclose I work for Caltrans. I'm not here representing Caltrans. I'm a resident. I'm a concerned resident. I bike a lot. I run a lot. So whatever I'm saying here is just my opinion, my observations and my experiences working for Caltrans. As far as Black Road, I was in a meeting just this past year, and that's something that's going forward, is just for the signalized intersection. It does take some time for the funding to come in. And I believe SB CAG is responsible for part of that funding structure. Then, sorry, the new council person, Megan.
Yes.
So regarding Highway 1 and 166, there's some conflict with the railroad. There's some funds that they don't wanna cuff up, to pay for the. Just another disclosure again, I'm an electrical engineer, I work with all the signals, so part of the design, process is gonna go through me. And my boss, so. In these meetings, I have spoken up for residents of Guadalupe like myself and everybody here. And there's a project coming online for Santa Maria, and I've also spoken up about this concern. So anytime I can hear from residents about it, and I'm in these meetings, I do bring it up. I was not in the meeting with Shannon, and I have not met Mike Lou. I believe this project is from Central Region, from Fresno. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I can hit that.
For the ADA project, it may be from Fresno, so we may not have, at the district level here, we may not have so much input until like the late stage of the project. But I do urge all residents to continue to push, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to keep pushing and advocating. Call our local senator, our state senator, our local congressperson, push SB CAG, so communities like Guadalupe could get the funds that they dearly desire. Now, I'm new to Guadalupe, and I fell in love with Guadalupe when I moved here 4 years ago, and I wanted to be here. So I'm advocating for you guys. I'm not trying to be a hero, but I'm advocating for you guys, my neighbors, and my children, because I want them to grow up here. So I hope you guys don't beat me up. But I urge everybody to continue to push, talk to your neighbors about it. This is a great opportunity for Caltrans and the state as a whole to invest in communities that they've ignored in the past. And it's gonna take a lot of leadership, a lot of push from everybody. Don't get frustrated. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of pushback. And I'm already dealing with it. I completely urge all my neighbors. I have not met everybody. I know Belinda. But yeah, just continue, and I will continue to advocate, and hopefully I get to be in one of these meetings with Shannon in the Central Region. But if you have any info for me, I'm sure I could discuss it with other people that you may not be in contact with at a district level. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, you've got the, okay, so please.
A quick comment. After the letter is created along with the 300 supporting letters, I just encourage Guadalupe to turn it into Caltrans and possibly CC the leadership in this county that are in charge and in charge of the roads. I reached out to Salud Carvajal's office, and he gave me an email list of who's in charge of the roads. So I think if we're gonna do all this work, everybody's doing this amazing work to get this together, we should just CC and see our county leadership, because that's only gonna make it stronger. So the people on that list was Monique Lamone and Gary Hart, our new person. And
Great.
there's one more person, but I can forward you all the email from Salud's office. So you can see straight away who's like, you know, covering that area of the county. So it would just be support. I mean, that's all I was gonna say.
Okay, thank you.
Because when, if they're CC'd and Caltrans sees it, it seems like, oh, well, you know, we're doing our due diligence to get, you know, it's like pressure for them, I guess.
Okay.
You know, we could put pressure on them to actually, you know, what the ideas of the resident wants, and, you know. Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Can I get your name for the record?
Sure. Dina, E-N-N-A. Zamorn, Z-A-M-A-R-R-O-N.
That's my card.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have enough.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you, for all of you who signed and are pushing this stuff. We're on item 13, consideration of proposed ordinance adding chapter 8.80 to Guadalupe Municipal Code. Todd.
Yes, sir.
Mayor and Council, just a brief beginning, and I'm gonna pass it over to, Philip. In conjunction with the Guadalupe Department of Public Safety, Public Works Department Planning Director, City Administrator, City Attorney, staff drafted an ordinance proposing to add chapter 8.80 to the municipal code, requiring the registration and maintenance of all vacant commercial buildings as defined in the proposed ordinance. It was around 3 years ago we brought this forward, and I think the idea was actually sparked by our interim. So, and with that, the details within the ordinance, I'm gonna pass it over to Philip, because he more or less tied that all together.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As Todd said, this ordinance came before the council in 2020. But as as it's indicated in the staff report, the timing was bad. It was in the midst of the pandemic, the economic conditions weren't right. There was concern that this ordinance might negatively impact the businesses in town even worse than they already were being impacted. So staff believes the time, those circumstances have changed, and the time is right now to move this ordinance forward. I'll briefly discuss the outline of the ordinance and then the response that we got from the Guadalupe Business Association. The proposed ordinance requires that all owners of vacant commercial buildings, as those are defined, provide information on a registration form provided by the city. And that will include general information about the building, as well as the owner's plan and timetable for returning the building to use or occupancy. A vacant commercial building is defined as a commercial, and that actually includes industrial as well because of the way the ordinance is written, but a commercial or industrial building where greater than 50% of the commercial units within the building have been unoccupied for over 90 days. The building, a commercial building is not considered vacant if there are active building permits for rehabilitation or alterations, or if the owner is actively applying for permits, authorizations like a CUP or licenses required by the state. And also, if the building is in full compliance with all codes and is being actively marketed for lease, sale, or rent, even though it's vacant under the ordinance, it won't be required to pay the annual renewal fee. The ordinance is not intended to be punitive, but it is intended to put a little pressure on owners who are not marketing the building or trying to get a tenant in there or sell it. If the building does qualify, it would still have to file the original form and pay the initial fee. Speaking of fees, the ordinance does require a registration fee to help offset the cost of inspections, administration, and enforcement, but the amount has not been decided. It will be set by council resolution at a future meeting if the council approves the ordinance. The ordinance requires an active management of any vacant building to ensure full compliance with codes. And for that reason, if the owner resides out of Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo County for at least 6 months a year, then the ordinance requires a local property manager or other designated responsible person to act on that person's behalf with respect to the property. Also, all owners or responsible parties are required to conduct a monthly inspection of the building to ensure that there are no violations. Failure to do that, and if the city discovers a violation, could result in fines or penalties, which the ordinance does provide for. Okay, that's about the summary of the highlights of the ordinance. Now, at the meeting in 2020, the council gave direction to staff to bring this forward at a future time, but also to seek the input from the Guadalupe Business Association. That was done a few months ago. The report is attached to the staff report, the one we received from GBA. They were generally supportive of the ordinance. Most of the comments were in support. There were a few suggestions of, I would say, a relatively minor nature, fine tuning, and staff accepted some of them, but rejected others. Staff agreed with one of the comments that was made, that there was a lot of continued use of the word abandon in the ordinance that was reviewed by the GBA. And their comment was, it's a little unclear what that meant. And I mean, as opposed, does that mean empty, or what does it mean abandoned? It's kind of subjective. So we took a look at that and said, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have that vague fuzzy term in there when it's not necessary to meet the purpose of the ordinance. And it led to potential confusion, so we just got rid of it, although it did ironically find one place to be used, and that was in a section that 8.80.050, where we changed the language that a property shall be, quote, shall be maintained to prevent the appearance that the property is unmaintained. We added abandoned or unmaintained, because that gets more to what was meant by abandoned in the first place. If the building looks abandoned in a subjective way, we don't want that, but we don't want that to be a technical requirement or technical term in the ordinance. So it was added in one place, but it was removed all others in all other locations. One of the suggestions from the GBA was that about the owner inspection requirement on a monthly basis. The suggestion was that was a little too onerous, maybe every 2 months. Staff rejected that suggestion because it doesn't consider it unreasonable to require a monthly inspection of a vacant building. But if the council agrees with the GBA on that, I mean, 2 months will work. 60 days is okay as well. I wouldn't make it 90 days though. I think 60 days is it should be. Again, the ordinance is designed to gently push an owner into doing something that will help the economic development efforts that the city is now starting to really get going. That's another reason why I think this is a right time for the ordinance to be in place, because there are a number of things coming down the pike that will be crucial to our economic development efforts. Another suggestion was made to include lots with weeds and trash in the ordinance, but that was rejected because staff felt that that was already adequately addressed in the property nuisance ordinance. Okay, that's bad. And in conclusion, no. And then finally, another member suggested that there should be a discussion of incentive programs to encourage compliance, grants, discounts, and deferments for things like signage repair, facade maintenance, or painting. Staff has no objection to that, but didn't want to make that part of the ordinance, especially since that kind of thing should probably be generated by the council. The council supports it, then staff will look into it and come back with some options, and it can be addressed outside the ordinance. So that suggestion was also rejected, but it's a good one. Staff doesn't have any problem with it. So that concludes staff's report, and we're available for any questions.
Okay, we've got several members of the GBA here. You folks have comments on what was just discussed?
Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
If you'd like to speak, you're.
We saw your responses in the letter, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the letter.
Thank you. Okay.
The letter pretty much summarizes the standpoint of the GBA, but as it does say in the letter, it's not the letter that was presented was to provide the point of view of the different members. It's not a policy of the GBA. So I wanted to make that distinction, because I know that there are different members of the GBA that feel a certain way, and we didn't want to speak for everybody. So it's we're trying to toe that line.
Okay, good. You make a good politician. That's good.
He sure does.
I have I have Lupe. He has a request to speak on this item. And then we'll get Stu.
Thank you. I did it correctly on this one. I put a request to speak. So I am a GBA member, and I'm on the board, but these are my personal comments, not as a property owner, not as a member of the GBA. You know, an average property, you have a property tax, which the city gets a portion of, which is not a big amount. And you also have a city business license fee. You have a city utility tax for utilities. You have fire department inspection fees, and now you're gonna have an annual registration fee. If you guys decide to move forward with this, and I understand the main reason why it's over here in the corner, but I would suggest merging the fire department inspection fees with the annual registration fee, because the fire department's already going out there, and then you're not double charging for an inspection that's already being done anyway. My 2 cents. Thanks.
I didn't see it.
That was
Maybe,
bad.
maybe I overlooked it. What is that? What are the permit, what are the registration fee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, we haven't,
We haven't determined that. yet.
that will be set by the council by resolution.
Okay,
We didn't want to put it in the ordinance because, well,
Okay.
first of all, staff hasn't looked at the issue and there was no reason to if the ordinance wasn't going to get adopted.
well, maybe we need to look at that suggestion that Linda made in terms of combining that, so.
Surely we could. I would just argue that that is a little contrary to the purpose of the ordinance, which is to kind of be a little nudge, a bit of a nuisance for an owner that's not taking action on the building. So having to pay a second fee for not doing what they're supposed to do might be a reason to keep that fee. That's the only thing I would counter. Again, we're not really looking at somebody who's actively trying to market their
Right.
property, can't find a tenant, you know, it's somebody that's not doing anything. The property tax that we receive on a lot of those buildings that are vacant, it's very low because it's, you know, it was done a long time ago, so we're not really getting any revenue from it just sitting there. They're not applying for business licenses, so at least that inspection fee would be something that would get their attention and say, you know what, I'm gonna get the city off my back, I'm gonna
Right.
sell the building, or I'm gonna come up with a tenant or something. That's the counterpose
Okay.
what Mr. Albert said. Thank
You
you.
know, there's, like, look, Mr. Aller has mentioned, there's probably just one site that we're looking at, maybe a couple of them.
Well, they've listed, at least the GBA has listed some.
Yeah, I don't know how many there are. We all know there's one in particular that generated this as but I think that there are others that we want to address too, and there may be more as time goes on.
Just a quick point of clarification too. Quick point of clarification, some of the properties that are listed in that letter have since been.
Right,
The gym
Occupied.
yeah, yeah,
And the Royal Theater is under Woods.
and that one.
yeah, they're moving forward.
Yeah, right. We'll find it.
Does this registration fall under our ownership enforcement?
Councilmember Hernandez, yes, it does. There's a specific reference to the enforcement section of the administrative fines. And then the property nuisance ordinance would apply to it as well, independently of any provisions in this ordinance.
In the past. Any notifications or paperwork on that?
That's you.
Do we
I don't
know
know that maybe fire, you know?
fire?
So with regards to the abandoned property, unless the property was in a state of disrepair or it created a visual nuisance beyond just being a building and that's in slight disrepair. No contact was made, so they had to meet those standards in order for us to make contact with them. If it's just a vacant property, they just didn't get a notice.
I have something to add, actually. I received a communication from former fire chief Jack Owen about this ordinance. Let me call it up real quick here. He mentioned there was some efforts, but it was a while ago. I think in 2018, there was an effort to see if I can find it. Of course, I can't. Apologize. If memory serves, he said that there was inspections. And I have seen some plans of inspections of the building on the corner that we're talking about. So there was an attempt back in 2018 to do something, and then that came to nothing. So
I have a thought, and I'm thinking out loud here, incorporating both businesses that are in good standing already, and of course, we're trying to bring up the buildings that are in potential disrepair. Would it be okay when it is time to do fees? Could you potentially waive initial fees for buildings in good standing and give credit for that? Just so that it would sort of be a balance between initially getting those buildings that are perhaps out of compliance up to compliance, and then sort of incentivizing the ones that are currently in good standing moving forward. I don't know, that's just a thought.
decision.
well, thank you, Councilmember Lizaldi and council. I didn't raise that in my staff report, but when I was reviewing the ordinance after the GBA's comments, it occurred to me that it wouldn't hurt us to, and I probably should have raised this because it wasn't in the original draft, but there's a provision in there that if this was actually a comment also from the planning director. The idea is that if for example, if the initial registration fee is paid, but in the meantime, the building owner does what's necessary, actively markets the fee, it's already in the ordinance, the fee would not be required to be paid, even though the building is still on the list. The fee wouldn't be required. And then we also added a provision that say that after the annual fee was due, and then 2 months later, the building finally was rented, we would, or if they did what was necessary to, if they did what was necessary, they could apply to the city manager for a refund, a prorated refund. So that would encourage somebody, even if like they paid the fee and they don't have to wait a year, or they can get that part of that money back, but they would have to act fast to get the majority of it. So I hope that was something to show that staff's trying to be flexible and provide incentives, and not trying to make money on this. This is really just the fees would just be to cover our costs.
Stu, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you. Good evening. I came to support the city on the Caltrans issue, but then I read this. And you may recall, Mr. Mayor, that I provided a letter in August of 2020 outlining my opinion. And I know Mr. Cinco and I agree on this. That this ordinance as written then violated the US Constitution. Because it imposes warrantless searches, for instance. There's a couple of other ways that it probably violates the Constitution, and the Supreme Court has been evolving since then in its opinions that elevate property rights more than they did before. So as a civil right, everybody has a civil right to own property, to use that property, and even to exclude people from their property. So the fact that a property owner has a building that is empty is not something that is an attack on their community. Now, I'm a general counsel and secretary of the Andres Realty Company. As you know, we own the buildings across from the train station. I'm happy to say that we have completely leased out those buildings. And so we're not going to have to personally worry about this ordinance for another 20 or 25 years. But there are other property owners, I imagine, in town who, well, let me put it this way. When I was a kid, I remember going on a scouting outing and somebody decided they'd kick a hornet's nest. And they were just trying to get the attention of the hornets. That's just not a good idea. So anyway, I really encourage you not to make this mistake. There's a health and safety code set of section that could be applied to the one building you're worried about in this town. It allows for appointment of a receiver. Several communities locally have done that. The cost of the city ends up being zero. The property owners.
Please wrap it up in about 30 seconds.
Sure, the property owners get paid at the end and the building gets fixed up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to briefly respond. I understand where Mr. Jenkins is coming from. I also didn't emphasize the health and safety basis that this ordinance is based on, that would give it in my opinion, a pretty solid legal ground. While it duplicates somewhat the property nuisance ordinance, the property nuisance ordinance doesn't provide as it approaches the problem in a different way. So I think that this is based on a health and safety basis in addition to the property nuisance ordinance. And I don't think it's onerous in terms of like warrantless search. If fire inspections are allowed every year, I think that this would be allowed. So anyway, thank you.
I have one more quick question. I'm sorry. I know it's late. surrounding cities or municipalities have similar ordinances already on the books?
We actually pilfered this ordinance from what was it? Willits, and I know that there are other cities, and I'm unaware of any legal challenges of the type that Mr. Jenkins raised. I'm not saying there aren't, he may have looked at it. I'm unfamiliar with any in California at least, and I will probably double check that to make sure in light of his comments, but and if I find anything in between now and the next meeting, if this is discussed, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question from council? So need a motion to introduce this by title only and waive the first reading ordinance 2023-507. Adding chapter 8.80 to the municipal code. And continue meeting to February 14th for second reading and adoption. Is there a motion to that effect?
Almost to introduce the title of the ordinance number 23-507.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you, Bill. And thank you, audience, for your comments. Number 14, future agenda items. Want to add anything?
Can we revisit, can we get a status? I know it's in the safety report, but just ordinances in general on how we're doing with enforcement. I noticed in a couple of the reports, I'm not sure if the numbers are correct, so I just would like to see that. Where are we at with code enforcement? And if we're gonna be reintroducing ordinances, can we get an update on that at the next meeting? Like the end of year totals for 2022.
You're just talking the statistics?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the chief thing.
Thank you.
I don't have the stats.
Yes, ma'am, we will get that.
Thanks.
Anything else from council?
I'd like to see if we can get on the agenda the whole, at the park. I know this meeting was quick to come. But with everything that's happening in front, we can get that on there.
The parking you're talking about?
With the driving right here on.
The closure, street closure?
Yeah, the street closure and then with some of the parking around.
What specific, have you made, the school been meeting with the chief, and do we have any thing to discuss, decision making?
Where's that?
Sorry, what's your question, sir?
Has there been discussion with you and the school, superintendent regarding what's happening, on Merritt?
Not since this has occurred. There's been a lot of I don't say concern. I'm still getting issues from parents. Getting issues from teachers who want more parking. We're getting issues from city employees concerning parking. One of those things, you just get beat up from every side. And so we're all looking for some kind of direction. I would say it'd be interesting if we can have some of the powers that be meet to see what we can do. I've asked the superintendent about having parents. We tried that, and only 2 parents showed up when I went to the school board meeting. Unfortunately, they kind of do their situation different. They have the closed session
Right.
in the first part, so people sat for 2 hours.
It's not.
And it's not really good. People went home. So I'm just looking for any kind of venue that we can get people together to find out, because it's one of the things no one's really showing.
Well, it seems to me that the biggest issue, the biggest of all of this is the dropping off the kids, because I walked there I don't know, was it this morning? I think it was. And I had the park over there at the senior center, which is fine to come over to the city hall. And then 5 minutes later, it was clear. So in that, looking at that parking situation, I was talking to the crossing guard, he says that the parents at the park or drop the kids off at the church.
The church are right here.
Okay, and that's blocked right here, so
I just brought that the other day.
Well, how many days have we experienced this? Is it something new?
Been since.
It's only been
2 weeks?
It's very, yeah.
It's been about a week and a half, and I will mention parents are doing like a roll stop where they don't completely stop, the kid gets off. And then there's cars going left and right, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Mr. Mayor, we are planning on bringing this on the 14th.
Okay.
We can't really get into discussion of that
All
right
right,
now.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, and then by the 14th, maybe there'll be more data,
And
right?
Mr. Costa will
Yeah.
come up with some answers.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to him personally, outside this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got some ideas. I think shot on the right.
I do have a last question. Is there any, issues with park tagging at the Pioneer Park? Bubble Park on the floor, the basketball court? Is there any issues with park tagging at Bubble Park? I seen a photo and there's like tagging all over the basketball court.
That's kind of just everywhere.
Unfortunately, tagging has been happening consistently, even since I've been here for the past year, everywhere. We're constantly checking parts, constantly having to send our maintenance guy out there to repaint over the top of it. So if there's tagging out there, I'll have them go out there and check it out, but it's just.
No, Carmel Park's the same way.
Yeah, it's just everywhere.
I seen the whole basketball court layout and I was like, well, they're tagging on the floor now, that's not
Yeah.
common.
It's because they had been, or I don't think it was at, is it at Echo Park where they have the wall with the mural?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had tagged, I don't think it was on the mural, but on the wall that we had to repaint, and I think it actually was on part of the mural too, because we had to try to match. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just everywhere.
Okay, any other announcements, council activity reports?
Sure. Mike Directus, I was just approached by a resident here about, if any of you guys know about the closure of the Wallaby Beach over the storms, if we have any information on that, maybe we can formalize an email to our 5th district supervisor or Salud Carvajal. Because believe it or not, I mean, that does contribute to our tourism here in town. And with that being closed down, I was given some pictures of the damage. It's pretty bad. And the actual resident has reached out numerous times to the coastal commission with no avail. So Shannon or Todd, do we know anything about that?
Yeah, we just had this discussion today, and I'll let Shannon speak to it.
Okay, there are two issues. One is access to the beach and the other one is the beach itself.
Right.
The access to the beach, that is Bay County Road. It is outside our jurisdiction. I can certainly start having conversations with County Public Works to find out what's going on. So you're speaking of the road, right?
Yes, I mean, well, I'm speaking of the road, but I mean, I've seen the pictures to the actual beach. And I mean, there's some damage out there and it's just, at this point, we're what, a week and a half out of the storm and it's never even hit the news. There's no news feed on it, that it's closed, there's nothing.
Well, the beach is closed for two reasons. One, because you can't access it. The other is because the wastewater treatment plant is currently discharging undisinfected water to Santa Maria River. On January 10th, in the early morning, the river breached the berm to our holding tanks that hold our treated water. But we aren't required, based on our usage of that water, to disinfect it. Of course, because the fates were conspiring against me, we were in the middle of our effluent pump station replacement project. So we were filling ponds with our treated water when the storm hit. The river then filled our ponds with water. Well, the treatment plant is still operating. Unless everybody wants to turn off their sinks and other devices, the treatment plant is still treating water. Well, because the river filled the ponds, there's no place for that water to go. So the treated ponds are constantly now discharging to the river and will be doing so until our treated effluent pump station will be back up and running, which is currently scheduled for February 6th.
But the issue is the state, in terms of the beach and the it's not untreated, but it's not disinfected,
It's not
it's closed.
disinfected, right? So I was required to contact Santa Barbara County Environmental Health and inform them that there was disinfected water making it to the beach. And so he was the one who made the call to close the beach, and the beach will remain closed until our discharge stops, which will not at this time be before February sixth, or until they sample two negative coliform samples at the beach. But they can't even access the beach to do the testing because of the road. So, so we have two issues there, that are.
No, yeah, I understand. I just want to bring that to light to residents and people who are, you know, concerned with what's going on.
Yeah.
You want to fish now?
I would
Yeah, no.
advise it at this point.
I will say that I actually called county about the road and, I was not encouraged. It's going to be some time just because the way that the road washed out, the instability of the sand in that area, and then also the protected wildlife in that area. So it has to go through approvals.
May I ask who you spoke with?
County roads in Orchid, their staff member that answered the phone.
I can share that in contact with you. I had a contact and they also shared photos and they said they haven't even assessed the damage.
I have a contact, I just wanted to see if it was the same person, so that
Yeah,
I
they
would
haven't
know.
even assessed the damage. It hasn't gone out there and really checked that.
Yeah, it's not a life and safety.
So no beach walks, huh?
So not anytime soon. But I think it's good to have the discussion and keep it up so that it stays, you know, it's part of keeping our name out there and that we're important and that it needs to be addressed, so.
Absolutely.
Good to bring it up.
Okay,
Thank you.
the other, announcement, how's the dinner?
Oh, the dinner is always good. Todd was there, chief. Our treasurer was there. Myself handed out about, I think it was 5 or 6. Proclamations.
It's on the fire,
The firefighter appreciation dinner. It was really good.
who's our, person?
Was Guadalupe Reyes.
Okay.
And chief, you didn't mention his name at the dinner.
Yeah, we had, here we.
He
we
wasn't
told them that.
there.
Doesn't matter. You have too many knowledge for them to say.
Hey, I did a good job.
Okay, any other?
Can I just add, I just wanted to add that if you want to go to some fun event, the comedy there is amazing. I mean, and all the other chiefs there are fired, they were funny.
By the way, city council members are asked if they want to attend, so. You can attend those fire and police appreciation nights every year. It's good to attend. All right, any other announcements, activity reports? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn?
No motion to adjourn.
Good second.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank
Thank you all.
you.